Yeah, we'll try this out. Not big on shooting videos, so we'll see. Basically, I have a lot of valve noise, especially when I take off, and found out that 9718s have adjustable lash. Apparently after that they got rid of it. So for the cost of a valve cover gasket, because I don't feel like changing it again if I don't have to, let's see if I can fix it. And you can see I got the cheapy eBay header on there, race car, you know. But let's see what we can get done with it. So most of this is pretty self-explanatory, but I imagine there's plenty of people who this is their first time around. Used to do this for a living, so not quite the same deal for me. But Mitsu lips the timing cover, if I'm not mistaken, up over the edge of the valve cover, so it has to come off. Just these couple 10mm bolts here, I think here, that might be it. I'll find out as I go, to be honest with you. I don't really care to find a service manual. But gotta take this off, and obviously your spark plug wires and the coil packs. These, for anybody who doesn't know, be very careful. Old hoses are very brittle, and especially get like plastic PVCs, they'll snap right off unless you want to pay more for those. So take your time with them. Very, very slow. If you need to use a couple tools, some rags, maybe to cushion stuff. Some little tips and tricks I learned along the way. But honestly, I'm learning as I go too, so we'll figure it out. Really have nothing to hold the camera, so I'll kind of do it step by step and then show you as I go. Alright, so I stand corrected on the timing cover bolts. There are 4. I'm going to lose one. It's also a good tip. Really don't do this. I'm doing it because I'm being an idiot right now, but don't leave them way up there. You'll lose them in somewhere you can't find them. But anyway, and this just kind of slips up out. And you'll see there was the 4th one that I missed down on the bottom there in the back. But and these have a tendency to wear out too and fall out, the little seals. Sometimes you can clean them up with some brake clean or some thinner or whatever, and dry them out. Maybe put some spray contact on, put them back in there if you get it good and clean. It's a little trick I learned for way too many timing belts. But I'm going to take this cruise control cable off, or probably actually the regular throttle cable, but these are looking kind of rusty. They're probably going to be a pain, but might be able to just pop this out. I don't trust that anymore than taking the bolts out, so maybe I'll have to tap that out, who knows. But see if these break too. Well, lucky there. As you can see, not always the politest, but ooh, that'll happen to you sometimes too. Connector disassembles. Luckily, if you catch it, you just kind of snap it back in. But I'm gonna take the coil packs off too, and get the plug wires out, and we'll go from there. So, as you can see, I got the cruise control, or throttle cable rather, disconnected. It has these real short bolts here. Get the focus here. I guess not, because it doesn't like me. But anyway, you can tell they're shorter than, say, the timing bolts. The timing cover bolts, but luckily, in case you mix them up, timing cover bolts and the coil pack bracket bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about that if you happen to mix them up. But get those 2 bolts on each side of these off, and work those up out. Sometimes they need a little bit of TLC here, and then they pop free. And chances are, if your car has age, which all of these do at this point, you're going to have a lot of this oil, as soon as it likes to focus here, you get the point, all over the place. That's from these seals. That's what comes with the valve cover gasket. The oil has been leaking in. Luckily for me, it looks like only one or two got a little bit on them down inside. But this can, if you get this polluted enough, I've seen it where they will start fouling out. You'll have misfires, and it's a pain in the ass. So I may or may not replace these. I may just clean them and see if I'm lucky. It hasn't been giving me trouble, but now I know I may have to get wires here soon. I think you can buy these separated. The coil pack itself, I think you can buy just the boot. Don't know if that's the case or not. I know some cars you can, but looks like really all that's left is getting these air hoses off here and here, and start pulling the valve cover bolts. So, alright, so something I kind of didn't notice right off the bat is this wiring harness here is held down to a bracket that's built off of the valve cover as well. But it's just two little 10mm bolts. Almost everything you need for this is 10mm. That's them right there. They're not very long. They got like the pre-built washers on them with a lock washer if it would ever focus. Huh. They just don't like me today. Yeah, there you go. They have the pre-built lock washer and washer on it. But the valve cover bolts are also the same way. They're not the same length. Then they only have just the pre-built lock washer on them. Let's see if I can get this damn thing to focus some. There we go. You can see the pre-built lock washer on there. But they're a little bit longer. But there's only 6 of them, and and pretty much you can tell this one's been well past its better days, because as soon as I went to move it, it just came right off. That's not really that usual, unless, like I said, it's really old and the gasket's really brittle. But kind of trying to do this one-handed here. Probably take a little more care than I am, but if you're not holding the camera, that should help. But yeah, that's also something that's not very typical, that the spark plug seals stay seized on there. But like I said, everything here is pretty wore out. I mean, I can't complain. I've seen considerably dirtier insides of valve covers. It's not covered in burnt crusted on oil, which is pretty typical, especially for a lot of people who like domestics and buy an import. They think that they can treat everything the way they used to treat a Chevy, which are junk, just so you know. Anyway, so yeah, these are what we're going to be adjusting. See if I can get any kind of good angle to it, but one of these ought to be loose. There's, you can hear it. It'll focus on it. See a little bit of movement. I don't actually know how far off they are. I mean, you never really know that ahead of time, but I just, like I said, I heard too much noise, and I don't like it. So I looked it up, and there seems to be a lot of conflicting information. People say this is good for that, or that's good for this. Nobody, like AutoZone, says that there is no such thing as past 95, an adjustable lash rocker on a 1.8. So there's already some good misinformation for you, but can't treat them too badly. They have had some parts I needed for this that other parts companies didn't have. So there's a lot on, you can look all over YouTube to see how to do this. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to maybe see if I can find out how loose they are, maybe give you an idea of that. But the information I found actually was labeled, I think, from Kiev or something like that, on a different server, but I got it through a Google search finally. I found it. But I'll see if I can find a way. Like I said, I'm not good with videos, but if I can get somebody to help me show where that address is, and maybe even show you the specs I got, because it's a PDF you can download, and which I just downloaded to my phone. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's 9 thousandths for intake and 20 thousandths for exhaust. I will double check that. To go through, there's a procedure. You rotate the engine to, I think it's top dead center cylinder 1, and then there's a certain sequence of ones you can adjust that they will be on their base circle of the cam lobe. And if you're not familiar with that, a cam lobe, one, you can look that up because that's a lot to explain on just this video, but it's a basically an egg shape. That's all it really makes it go up and down. You're on the bottom of the egg. That's the best way to describe it. And I'm going to try getting into that and see. I think you rotate it to 1 for a certain number, and then cylinder 4 for a certain number, and then should be good to go. We'll see if I even need much adjustment or not, and see what it runs like after that. Alright, so I'm not going to go into much detail, like I said, since this is this is pretty well covered all over YouTube. But these are some really long feeler gauges we have, but I think we got them on a junk sale or something. But anyway, the translation is it's 0.09 millimeters for intake, and it is 0.20 millimeters for the exhaust. So intake obviously over here, exhaust down here. Now I am not one to be too fidgety on something that's just a regular car. It's not a race motor. It's not exacting tolerances. If I can get this to show up. I have, maybe it won't. It's 4 thousandths and 0.102 millimeter. Now that's 3 thousandths was, I think, like 70 something or whatever. I didn't want to go under, because you got to think, whenever the motor heats up, that gap is not going, your metal's expanding, but that means the gap between the two pieces of metal, say my finger and my thumb, is shrinking because those both swell. So I'd rather go with a little bit bigger. That's just me. I'm not going to buy a whatever be 3.5 or 3 3/4 thousandths fucking gauge. That's a waste of time. And let's face it, you could set it just a shade tight, but I didn't tell you that, because you do it wrong, you're going to burn valves. So I didn't say that. But anyway, so then for the 20 thousandths millimeters, I'm sorry, the 0.20 millimeters, I went with 9 thousandths, which is 0.229. I know it's not exact, but as far as I'm concerned, you're gonna probably be fine. And let's face it, if something isn't right, shit happens anyway. It's one thing I learned about cars. It's never exact, no matter how much you try. Anyway, this, I'm going to do the exhaust side because it's a lot simpler to reach. The intake side is a pain in the ass, just so you know, getting your fingers down in there. Let's see if I can get a light on this, maybe show a little bit. Alright. So what you're doing is, you're actually getting this down in, I don't know if I'm going to get a good angle, but you're getting this in between the rocker and the top of the valve, all right? And in this case, this is just being a pain right now, but this is kind of one of the things you have to learn the feel of. it's going to not be tight, but it is not going to just slide in and out simply. Part of the problem with this too is the angle with the head and everything's kind of hard for your fingers to keep it straight and flat, because if you twist it, you're binding it, and it's going to feel tighter than it really is. But you can see it's a little tight there. You kind of want that little bit of a snap a little bit when it comes out. Oops. Like I said, this is a bit of a pain. It's going to be a fucking mess when you're done. But I'll focus already. Anyway, I set it just a shade tighter than I'd like, but I also don't know how long this car is going to be even in service without a different motor in it. But you can hear there's kind of that little pop of when it snaps out of here. This is usually pretty good metal as far as the feeler gauges. It will you will catch a little edge sometimes. You want to watch you don't want to damage them too much and get a burr, because that's obviously going to be taller than the thickness. Now they always do get a little bit of a burr here and there, but just it's kind of your own judgment. You kind of got to realize it's not, like I said, an exact science. But good example of that one. This, I think, is the setting. It's cylinder 1 and 3 on the exhaust when you set on the bottom of cylinder, or on the top dead center of cylinder 1. So we get to focus. This right here, you can see there is a little bit of a binding, but it's because I don't have space. But you can see that's not anywhere near, there's like no tension there. And actually, maybe not just loose enough. Sometimes they're even loose enough you can hear it jiggle even with the feeler gauge. It's that bad. But you can see this is just, there's all the room in the world to just move around. So it needs tightened down. And then obviously once it's tight, it's going to look more like what that one did. But the breakdown, and like I said, I'm going to try to find a way to get it put on, whether it be a visual or I'll just link it to maybe a screenshot video or whatever. But the let me get this out of the way. Alright, it's cylinder 1, which are your 2 intakes for cylinder 1, cylinder 2, those 2 intakes, then cylinder 1 exhaust and cylinder 3 exhaust. That's all when you're rotated to top dead center on cylinder 1. Then you do the rest. This is according to the manual page, like I said, is you're going to do 3 and 4, and then 2 and 4 when it's rotated to top dead center for cylinder 4. So I'm going to go through do that. Like I said, if you really need more help on adjusting lash, there's, I think, more in-depth videos people have made in various motors, so you can look that up. Alright, now after you get all your valves all adjusted, which I'm not done with, as far as the valve cover gasket, I generally recommend replacing it, because chances are if you're doing this, you haven't been in there in a while. Luckily there's a lot of overhead cam motors have a separate spot where the cam would need sealed. Like you can see there's RTV here that's for the cam sensor, but there's none in this case. It's actually pretty straightforward and easy. It's almost like an old push rod motor. Just clean everything around the outside, rag, paper towel, whatever. Paper towels, be careful you don't rip them, and you don't want to end up with stuff laying down here. It can clog up return holes and feed holes for oil and damage your head. Run some thinner or denatured alcohol maybe on the rag to clean the surface up some. Wipe these off too. I know you're gonna, it seems redundant, you're gonna want to put some lube on before you put them back together. Just a little bit on your fingers. But if there's dirt, crusty dirt and everything on there, it could tear the seal or keep a gap there that would allow it to leak through after you put a brand new seal on. So you want to wipe these all off and then put just a thin band right there up towards the top. The rest obviously is going to get sprayed with lube when it's all back together. But also something I like to do, because I've seen many weird timing belt failures, is let me get the light turned on here, is let's see if I can get this sit right. Maybe not. Get down inside your timing area with some brake cleaner, because it's pressurized and it's alcohol or something of the like. You want to get a lot of the oil residue that might have run down, say from filling up your oil. Like you'll see some right there. there's a tendency for when people fill up oil, they don't keep it clean. You end up with residue, which outside here just seems, messy, but in the end you'll end up with you can see some of the shininess down in there. You end up with oil down in your timing area. You can end up damaging the belt over time and reducing the length of the life of it. And this is an interference motor, so you don't want to do that. But get in there and clean it up. All inside, all inside of here, and all of this. This is your actual rear timing cover that your front one bolts to. Keeps all the shit out of there. You can generally stop. One of the big problems with oil leaks too, this little side note I've noticed, is people don't realize, even if you're just filling up your oil and you drain some on the side of the block, you might think you have an oil pan leak. It just took time to run down around the block, and now it's dripping off the oil pan. If you do have an oil leak, such as say like in the back in the cam there, the cam seal around the around here, it'll be down inside here, you won't know the difference if you have oil run down in there. So that's why I always say to make sure you clean it up real good and everything. But I'm going to check my gasket here and we'll move on from there. Alright, this is a new gasket and new spark plug seals. One of the reasons too you want to replace this stuff is, you can see as soon as it cooperates here, oh, this thing really doesn't want to focus. They're flexible. That's really the reason we use rubber for neoprene for everything. This is one of the old ones. It literally, I could not, if I wanted to, bend that. It's completely rock solid. It's long since passed its service life, so that's probably why I was oiling my spark plug seals. I mean, you can hear that shouldn't sound like that. But as far as the gasket, dig it out with fingernail, screwdriver, whatever. Of course, this wants to be a pain in the ass right now. Chances are, because it's so brittle, it's going to be hard to get out. In some cases, it'll even bust out in pieces if it's old enough. This goes back to what I said earlier about the oil leaks. You tend to get oil leaks you don't know where they're from simple things like a wore out valve cover gasket. It can leak anywhere and trail anywhere down. But I'll shut this off and tear this off with a screwdriver. But make sure also you'll see my spark plug where I was the spark plug wire boots, coil pack wire boots, or whatever, are they're covered in oil too. You want to take something like a whether it be denatured alcohol or thinner. Prefer denatured alcohol with something like that. You don't want to do too much damage to anything. Clean it off. Like I said, if you have brake clean, shit's expensive, but spray it on a rag or spray it on there, wipe it off with a rag, get it cleaned out, and also pull your spark plugs out. Make sure that they're cleaned off and good while you're in there, and make sure you clean your valve cover up real good, especially on the outside. There's a lot of oil residue and shit. I might run this through the parts washer if I can, and get it as clean as you can, so you know where you have problems elsewhere if you do later. But that's it for now. Move on to the next step. Alright, so I pulled my spark plugs out, checked the gap on those. It was actually surprisingly alright. Used auto light. I didn't have them. It was whoever put them in before, but they look new enough and it runs right. I'm gonna let it go. I prefer NGK or Denso Iridiums. That's just me, but Mitsu's just seem to run better with NGKs. But it's not a turbo car and it's a daily driver, so fuck it. Anyway, got the spark plug seals on. Like I said, just put a little lube right around the outside edge, just like on the tip of your finger or whatever. Just run it around, and cleaned out the valve cover. Don't need that in there. New valve cover gasket. A lot of times nowadays these neoprene ones are just bright blue, so don't be surprised. The old one, like I said, was completely brittle. I actually had to damn near chip it out with a screwdriver. It was stuck that bad and it was that hard. Made sure the PCV valve was working. Basically, just if they rattle, they work. Like I said, clean your surface, and that's pretty much just a matter of starting reassembly. Alright, so threw the valve cover back on. There's a torque spec somewhere, I'll have to find out, but you can look that up, or I guess tighten at your own risk. You don't want to crank it all the way down. There's sometimes little insert rings that go in that blue neoprene gasket you saw earlier that would be inside of there to stop it from over tightening. A lot of times those are on oil pan gaskets, not as much on valve cover gaskets, but there's a torque spec somewhere. I'm not going to look it up. I have done enough of these, I'll guesstimate, but I was wrong earlier when I mentioned about the housing over here needing to remove the cover, because I think it's Hondas maybe have it on there, but nonetheless, might be some Mitsubishi motors. Not a bad idea, because like I said, you want to get in here and make sure you get this cleaned out of oil and whatnot, which I'm actually going to do that here in a little bit. But really after that, when you put the valve cover on, you don't want to move it around a lot too much, because you don't want these seals to roll over. Not that they're already built pretty well, like an upside down umbrella, but you don't want to risk that, because then you have to tear it back apart just to fix some little tiny screw up. But pretty much they're usually pretty self-explanatory. You just sit it right down on, get your bolt holes lined up and tighten down, and then start putting your coil packs on, your throttle cable, and your timing cover, whatnot. And then here in a bit I'll do that, and then see if it acts right when I start it. Alright, I think I got everything pretty much back together now. Timing cover on, throttle cable, PCV, whatever other PCV hose that is, and bolted down my coil packs, and the wiring bracket here where those two bolts are to hold that in place. Other than that, I think it's pretty much time to see what it does. Hopefully I didn't forget something important. Now I put the key. The good news is I must have got something on the belt. Oh, there we go. Whatever it was came off. Might have been the denature alcohol when I was cleaning out the front of the timing area. But other than that, it seems fine. Got a little bit of course, you always end up spilling some oil on your exhaust. I could have cleaned it off, but quite frankly, I don't fucking care right now. And yeah, other than that, sounds just about as boring as it used to, so that's the good news. So take it for a test drive, see if anything acts up. Learn something, I'll let you guys know. If not, that's generally the basic idea for 97 Mirage with adjustable lifters, and it's a 1.8. And I don't know. Other than that, hopefully if anybody needs this, it helps, because I sure as hell took a while to find all the information I needed. Like I said, if I can, I'll find a way to post the information on the actual specifics and where to download the PDF. I think it's pretty much the entire 4G9 family. There's a repair manual for the engine group, so as soon as I find a way to do that, I'll let you guys know. I'll put that on there, and best of luck with all your repairs.